Thank you for watching. My name is Maira. I'm one of the exam support fellows. I have created this video as part of my fellowship project to help trainees prepare for AKT and to maximize their chances of passing AKT in the first attempt. Whenever we start preparing for any exam, we spend a lot of time asking our seniors and colleagues how to prepare for the exam, what resources to use. This video will give you all the information you need to get started. In this video, you will hear from trainees who initially struggled with AKT but succeeded on subsequent attempts. They have kindly shared their insights detailing how their strategies evolved and what made the difference for them to eventually pass the exam. I'm incredibly grateful to them for participating and helping others learn from their experiences. Please consider watching this with your ES in your tutorial time. Lastly, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please take a moment to fill out the reflection form linked below. Your feedback will help improve resources like this for others, and it's a great way to reflect on how you have benefited from this video. Thank you for watching again, and all the best for your AKT exam. Can you walk me through your educational and professional journey up until now?
Absolutely. So I started my schooling in the UK and I went abroad to Croatia to study medicine. And I was there for 6 years and then came back to England to do my F1 and F2 and now Bournemouth for GP training.
So I did my basic medicine degree from Pakistan in 2016, and then I moved here. I got married here. I did my foundation year, did an F3 year as well, and after that, I decided to move on to GP. So I did my GP exam, and have been doing my GP training since then.
I'm one of the GPSD3s now, and I am an international medical graduate. I graduated quite long ago from China, and then I did some practice in my home country as well, and I worked in Oman as well for a good period of 5 years, and then I moved to the UK. And I developed an interest in GP training, and hence I ended up landing in the GP land.
I'm a GP trainee. This is my third year. I'm working in Horndine. It's been a long journey. I'm an old graduated 2002. Had few rotations in medical surgical specialties, and then joined the emergency for more than 10 years. That was in Qatar before moving to Canada, where I worked also in emergency. 2021, I completed the registration here in the UK, and I worked briefly in Birmingham in geriatrics unit before sitting for the exams and starting the GP journey.
Reflecting on your previous attempts, what valuable insights did you gain? Was there anything you wished you had known before?
I think for my first attempt, the advice I got from all my peers was basically to do questions. And I think I didn't approach the questions well, in a sense that I didn't focus more on the explanation or learning the content, rather than I was just interested in the number of MCQs I do. But I think in my recent attempt, the one in which I passed, I did a thorough, I would say, reading, and I learned quite a lot of things, going on nice websites, nice guidelines.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the timing I chose to sit it the first time around wasn't the best for me, based on having just come out of hospital jobs. So I wish that I'd been in GP for a lot longer, because the way you think about the questions definitely changes.
First exam, I would say that I was being foolish. I did pass medicine a couple of times. You wouldn't believe that pass medicine has got like a cohort of 4,800 MCQs, I believe, at that time. And I just went through them again and again, and I ended up doing them 2 to 3 times, which I think was a lot, not for AKT. However, if you want to, you can just read the textbook material which is provided in past medicine.
Were there any specific obstacles that hindered your preparation? And looking back on them now, could they have been managed better?
So I think from a health perspective, I was not in my best sort of place to sit the exam as well. Perhaps looking back, I would delay the exam. However, it's all good learning.
I think the biggest now I think obstacle was that the journey from to work. It was 1 hour both sides, and when you have full one long day, 2 long days, it was too long. I think how could I managed it better? Probably the time management part. As in, on the full days, I should not have studied because I was studying and I was exhausting. And on my off days, then I didn't feel like doing much. So, yeah.
I believe there were a couple of mental obstacles from my own side because I was just brainstorming. Probably I'm an international medical graduate. I need to exert more into this exam. I have my young family, and I had to weigh the risks of and benefits of doing that 9 month of preparation, so that in case anybody falls ill or I have any other issues, I will be able to cope with the syllabus in the same time. So these were some of the obstacles which I've felt later on that they were definitely my own self-made obstacle. They weren't really obstacles. I think the exam is quite fair, and whether you are a UK graduate or an international medical graduate, you still require the same amount of time, whether you live on your own, or probably you might need a bit more time if you have young family members. But then it totally depends upon individual. If you are a type of person who can organize your day well, if you can just make sure that you have a dedicated 1 hour or even initially half an hour of study time, you can definitely develop that pace slowly and steadily, and build it up to fully cover the study material for the exam.
I felt I was very well prepared. The problem was I got distracted by the war in Gaza, which is my homeland, and losing many family during the first 2 weeks in the war. That, to be honest, put me down, and I started to lose concentration, focusing over the last 2 weeks before the exam, which I think affected me a lot. My supervisor and my TPD advised me to postpone the exam, but I thought, well, I prepared hard over the last few months. I'll just try it, and that was, I think, a mistake.
What strategies or changes did you implement in your latest attempt, and how did they help you to pass?
So the first time around, I was doing lots of note taking and making flashcards, but actually you don't have time to read them all at the end. So I tried to make it a bit more interactive by talking through cases with my trainer and speaking to colleagues about different scenarios, such as men's health, which I don't have much experience with, just getting a hold of that.
Full sources of MCQs like BMJ, and I used to do the RCGP MCQs as well, which I did in my second attempt as well, which were really helpful. However, in my second attempt, the most important factor which I found was that I focused more on the NICE guidelines, which I wasn't doing in my first attempt.
So in my latest attempt, I did a course which took us through different body systems, and we did MCQs, and then it was revisions, mocks. And the biggest thing which I think made a difference in my attempts and my achieving the goal was basically the NICE guidelines. In my first attempt, I didn't went through NICE guidelines that thoroughly, but this time I went through it thoroughly, and I can vouch for that. The NICE guidelines do make a difference.
I didn't change anything with them regarding this studying strategies, but I started to focus on clearing my mind and maybe distracting myself from watching the news.
Which resources do you believe were the most useful for your preparation?
I would say number one was nice guidelines. I really went through them thoroughly. Each and every, guidelines, important hygiene topics. The other thing which I did for myself, and everybody learns in a different way, was eMedica. It's a course which is 90 days challenge, and he sends you emails every day, that guy who is doing the course, with some hygiene questions, some more MCQs. So that one really helped me because every day they were coming and I knew I had to do it every day. And then there was the other one, GP Redwill. They had some graphic diagrams which was easy to grasp and remember.
I'd say the number one would be past medicine, just because there is a specific AKT section. The RCGP self-test is quite good as well, but I think the level of the questions is a bit easier than the exam. I also used some of the eMedica free YouTube videos, which were quite good, as well as some of the Aurora ones too.
Resource was the GP self-test. I did also an examination, the high yield questions.
The resources which I would recommend is the RCGP MCQs, which are quite very close to the real exam scenario, and also the BMJ MCQs as well. I found them really helpful. They weren't much, just 2,000 something, but I found them very close to the real exam later on. So these were the few resources. Apart from that, the commercial MCQs are available as well. You can try to use them, but I found them, they were very, very overexerting, and most of the questions are negatively framed, whereas in the real exam, out of the 200 MCQs, just 4 or 5 questions will be negatively framed. But if you go through these commercial MCQs, you will realize that most of the MCQs are negatively framed, and I felt that that's not appropriate, because you are not thinking in a straight direction. And then
Can you share any local resources that helped in your preparation?
there is a very useful teaching course provided by the Deanery in Southampton, which I attended as well. I believe it was a 2 days course in which they kind of go through the basics of statistics, admin related questions, and the general diseases as well. And also they gave us MCQ task as well, which we did, and they scored us for the MCQs, which I found really helpful, because my first attempt score was quite close to what I scored in that exam. So I think it was quite reflective of the real exam, and I would recommend every trainee to utilize it.
I think I took the West 16 course. That this was three-day course. It happens on different days. That one was good. And then after I failed my first attempt, the deanery gathered all the candidates who weren't successful, and they just, we discussed our shortcomings and how should we do it. So that was also useful as.
How did your trainer or educational supervisor contribute to your preparation, and could they have supported you better?
I would answer the second question first. There's nothing to improve, to be honest. He did absolutely amazing job. Every tutorial we used to go through ophthalmology pictures, ENT pictures, skin pictures, because I think this was my weakest point, and I realized it in my second attempt. So that's why we went through those pictures. He used to give me some MCQs. I used to make some flashcards, and he used to quiz me on those. So it was really good. I think in my passing ATQ, my tutorials were, I would say, 90% of the case where that helped me.
On the RCGP website about how trainers can support trainees for the AKT, so we had a look through that, but otherwise just going through sort of areas of weakness and discussing those in our tutorial and making presentations, things like that. That's quite helpful.
I think they did very well, and they did their best. It was me who didn't listen to them, so it was my mistake. because preparing or I think the mental well-being is a very important side of the preparation. If you are distracted, if you have family issues, if you have issues back home, I would recommend just postpone that until things are settled.
My educational supervisor were really supportive of my preparation. We used to utilize our tutorials for preparing for AKT exam. We used to discuss the common topics, reading through the NICE guidelines as well. And we used to go through the 14 fish MCQ bank because I had access to it. And then later on, we used to do the discuss the answers, why this was right or wrong. So it was really helpful. And
Did you receive any professional support unit help? And if not, what influenced your decision? And do you believe it could have been beneficial in?
I had some help from the professional support and wellbeing group, I think after the first attempt, just managing personal circumstances and getting to grips with that side. But yeah, they were very helpful.
And after my first attempt, the deanery and the program director, they did mention dyslexia screening, but I think that wasn't the case for me because I never had time management issues. And as suggested by my trainer and the program director itself, I don't have, and we've previously done dyslexia screening, but I think this is one of the good options. And I would encourage everybody who thinks they have, slight chances of being it or are not passing their attempts to go through this one.
Did you engage in any collaborative study groups, and how did it impact your preparation?
I would strongly recommend that you form a group of 2 to 3 people. I personally did that as well. And we used to study together. We used to have our study sessions virtually or in person. And that really helps you to maintain your pace of doing MCQs on daily basis. Because when you initially start doing MCQs, you can't really do more than 20 MCQs a day. But then I realized the more you do it, it becomes a habit.
So me and my friend did mocks together, and we used to call over WhatsApp or FaceTime, and we used to test each other on one of the topics. I think it did help because if I've read some guidelines or something which I didn't grasp really well, talking to a friend, discussing it was rather useful.
What I used to do is read the question, answer it with my study partner. Even when we answer that question correctly, we used to have a look at the guidelines quickly, and that I think helped a lot because answering the questions and getting 90 or even 100% is not enough because they keep changing their questions. And
What key advice would you give to individuals who are just embarking on their journey to prepare for the exam?
So definitely make sure you're at the right time. So you've been in GP for at least a year. Make sure that you have enough time to study for the exam because there is definitely a lot to cover, but also having the support you need in terms of people around you, and making sure that you're in the right headspace to sit the exam, and you're doing things like eating and sleeping well, and also managing work at the same time. So look after yourself, that's the main thing, but definitely make sure it's the right time in your career.
Start preparing early. Don't say, "Oh, still have 1 year before sitting for the exam." Ask the others who passed and who failed also, because you learn from others' mistakes. Make sure you're ready not only scientifically by reading or answering questions, but also make sure you're mentally ready if you have any issues or problems. I'm not saying don't read or study, but maybe just slow down. Don't sit for the exam until things are settled down.
I would say it is a hard exam. Take it seriously, and do the preparation very well. Don't just do the questions. You need to go through your nice guidelines, any resources you can find. And I would say use your tutorials well while you're preparing for your AKT.
What are your overarching thoughts on the entire experience? Any on the day exam tips or any tips or tricks to attempt the questions? Anything that essentially I haven't asked and you would like to share?
I would recommend, if you can, give yourself one day before the exam not to study anything, fully relax, or just sort of superficially looking at your notes. Don't go crazy the day before reading through things because most of the time it doesn't come up. And just trust that you have the knowledge or you've seen something similar enough to get the questions confidently. Don't worry if you don't know the answer. You can probably narrow it down to at least two, but you'll do great.
On the day tip, the number one and the most important one is go with the positive mindset. Again, in my reattempt, I went with the positive mindset. I'm going to pass this exam. I'm going to score more than 90%. So I think positive mindset is the key, number one. And when you're doing the questions, I would say it's the only one who can fail you in your exam is the one sitting in your chair. So do not go deep into the questions. Think about it's a GP exam. So for that, you need to have spot answers, the most important one, most common ones. There will be few which are, uncommon, but mostly there will be most common questions. So take that. Don't go deep into, the questions or they're trying to trick me. There's nobody trying to trick you.